All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Pirates Podcast to be named later. With me, as always, is my friend and my favorite Pirates reporter, Alex Stumpf. That's right, man. You're my favorite. You've beat them all out. And I'm Eddie
I mean,
Provident, just the guy that's here along for the ride. How's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. And Eddie, you're my favorite person who's ever just along for the ride.
Man, my wife's never even said that to me. So, um, So you got a little something coming up tomorrow with the Pittsburgh Pirates. It is their Hall of Fame night, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be a full rich day. Four new inductees to the Pirates Hall of Fame. Dick Groat, who sadly passed earlier this year. Uh, but Elroy Face, Bob Friend, and Kent DeColvey. Also amongst the people who are being inducted. It's a class of four, much smaller than the inaugural class that we saw last year. I mean, that was
Hmm.
kind of expected. You can't always induct 19 people. It's probably going to be in that 3 to 5 range for a while. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone here that's no red flags. I think everyone kind of figures
No,
all four
no.
of these guys are
This,
pretty slam dunk Hall of Famers for
yeah,
the Pirates.
yeah. One thing that I appreciate it, and it kind of hurts my heart at the same time, Alex, is the rich history that the Pittsburgh Pirates have. Um, our generation, I think we're kind of jaded with the Pirates. We have seen a lot of losing. We've seen a lot of the three wild card appearances uh, back to back to back. One division series that we got to see that we remember. Obviously, the early '90s. I was born, but I don't remember the early '90s. um, but there's a rich history with the Pittsburgh Pirates that I think that sometimes our generation doesn't really get to tap into. And I think nights like tomorrow night are a really good reminder for guys like us, or at least like me. I think you're more of a student of the game and more, I would say, like in tune with the history. But it's a good reminder for guys like me that the Pittsburgh Pirates at one point in time were a revered franchise and a revered organization. And hopefully they get back to that. But I like nights like tomorrow night. I like this. You get to learn about guys like Elroy Face and Dick Groat, and obviously about Kent DeColvey because of the World Series closer and everything. But you get to understand and appreciate guys that maybe you normally wouldn't, because just so fed up with the way things have been over the last few years.
Well, we got four new guys going in on Thursday. So I'm going to open this up to you, Eddie. Who is your person who hasn't gotten their flowers yet that deserves to be in
So
the
I
Pirates
thought
Hall of
about
Fame?
this. And there's a couple of names that come to mind. I am a child of the '90s and early 2000s, so maybe these guys don't hold the uh, historic franchise weight that some would. A guy like Francisco Cordova, uh, another Brian Giles. These are my favorites. Okay, these are my favorites. All
Oh,
right, these are
okay.
not guys.
Okay.
Like, these are not guys.
I didn't expect you to
Make
start
sure
with
I
Francisco
understand it. Make sure I understand.
Cordova.
These are not people that I think should be in the hall. These are just people that are near and dear to my heart. That when you asked me that question, it was like, all right, these guys don't deserve there, but they're my favorites. The guy that I'm going to say that's going to upset everybody. They already don't like me. They're going to like me less. Barry Bonds needs to be in this Pirates Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to like you. But
Barry
no, it's
Bonds needs to be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and he needs to be
yeah.
in the Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame. And I'm sticking by that. He won 2 MVPs with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a part of the 30-30 club twice with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had 556 RBIs, a batting average of 275, 176 homers, all in just a little over 1,000 games with the Buccos. He did it in 7 seasons with the Pirates from '86 to '92. Uh, what he meant to this franchise, getting them back to the playoffs, very close to a pennant. I believe that Barry Bonds is one of the better athletes that the city of Pittsburgh has seen over the last 30 or 40 years. We didn't get to see him long because he went to San Francisco, but it is my opinion that Barry Bonds needs to be, you can't tell the story of the Pittsburgh Pirates without Barry Bonds.
Yeah,
So he
and
needs to be in that Hall of Fame.
I have that same argument too with Bonds in the regular, Cooperstown
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not particularly excited or passionate about it, but we can't pretend that it didn't happen, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a argument for a whole
Oh, that's
other.
you.
Actually,
Don't
no,
get
not
me.
even. The argument's done. It's over. He didn't even get into the Veterans Committee. Like it's looking pretty
Don't get me
bleak if he'll ever
started.
get in.
You want to get me on a roll, man? Don't get me
No,
started on that era.
no. But I will
We're not
say
doing that tonight.
two MVPs, one of the most important players in this side of 1979 in this franchise's history. Yeah, no questions asked. Bonds. I get him not being in that inaugural class. I get
Yeah,
uh, this class having uh, focus more on players from the 60s, 50s, 70s. Like I get all that. So I get why he hasn't been put in. He'll get it at one point. But
Do
yeah,
who's your guy?
my guy is someone that I want to make sure he's around for him to get his flowers is Manny Sangster. And we're
That's a good one.
yeah,
That's
we're
I know a lot of my family members that would agree 1,000% with you.
yeah. I mean, it, it was good that Dick Groat was told the news before his passing earlier this year,
Oh, I
and
didn't know
it's
that. That's cool.
yeah, you got the news, but it's also one of those it's gonna be a little bittersweet that he's not
Hmm.
actually there, and that's nobody's fault. That's nobody. I mean, the Pirates
No, no.
eh, they wanted to make sure that Maz and Parker and Blast got their moment last. You can't have 20 guys come over. So I get that. I don't think like if we're just talking solely as a baseball player, Manny Sanguian is probably the greatest catcher in this franchise's history. It's him and Kendall, and it's gonna come down to where you fall on whatever. He won two World Series. He had a game-winning hit in 1979 World Series. He long time and just part and just really one of the best and greatest ambassadors for the franchise in his
He's great.
post-playing career. Yeah, like you go to Manny's Barbecue, you see him. He's at all these events throughout the city over these past couple decades. Like he is I can't think of too many players who have represented this organization as well as him. And whenever you put on his on-field accomplishments, I would have liked to see Manny get in this time. He needs to get in next time, in my opinion.
When I was going to Duquesne, I went to a lot of baseball games with one of my buddies who's probably the biggest baseball fan that I know, and it's the first, and that really might be the only time, even with me being involved in the media side now, but sitting down next to where the barbecue joint is at PNC Park, um, there it's the first time that a former player or somebody that I knew and was kind of starstruck by had actually sparked a conversation with me. Like he just saw a random college kid sitting there and he started talking to me about baseball. And that I think to me, as much as I've heard the stories about him from my dad and my grandpap and my uncles, the the way that what you brought up about him being an ambassador to me is equally as important in a city like Pittsburgh. And I'm glad that you also mentioned Jason Kendall because Jason Kendall, I think, he would have been my number two for my pick. It would be Barry Bonds and then Jason Kendall. Jason Kendall wasn't a part of the playoff teams or the championship teams. Never won an MVP. But if you think of the face of the Pittsburgh Pirates through the mid and late '90s, it's got to be Jason Kendall. Um, he was. I think I wore number 18 in Little League because of Jason Kendall. I didn't even play catcher, but I wore number 18 in Little League because he was the guy that everybody wanted to be on the Pittsburgh Pirates. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned his name because he deserves his flowers too.
Yeah, I can be patient with Kendall though. He
Oh
can be a
yeah,
couple
yeah.
years down the line,
He
as far as I'm
absolutely, I
concerned.
agree with that.
Oh, down the line, but not right now.
Yeah,
Get Manny in 2024 is going to be my
I'm with you.
campaign for a while now, and I'm kicking it off here. We're going to take a break.
I'll be your vice on that campaign.
We're going to take a break. Whenever we come back, I want to talk about a Pirate outfielder.
Ooh.
Welcome back to the Pirates podcast, to be named later, here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. Eddie, Jack Sawinski had a hit on Friday.
It's progress.
Raised the batting average to 203. OPS on the year has been 769. This month of August has been brutal for him.
It's not been good.
It has been absolutely brutal. Derek Shelton this week made some interesting comments. I'm going to read off the quote here.
Okay.
On him. If you look at the whole body of work, he's actually had a pretty good year. He's in a tough stretch right now. And I think right now we feel it's best for him to be here and to get his work in. He's got his work in the last 2 days early, just to continue to solidify some things that we know are there, and we need him to probably be a little more aggressive at the plate. I really want to hit that last one because this has been that Minneapolis trip. This is since we last recorded, but that game against the Twins where he twice looked at strike 3 with a runner on third and less than 2 outs. Just, you can't do that. You can't do that twice. That's kind of like, there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent there, and it's buoyed him through these rough spots. But there are times where it's like, you do got to be more aggressive, and it's something that the organization is bringing up. It's, you got to swing the bat. You can't be passive up there. No Pirate in the pitch tracking era has looked at more called strikes than Jack Sawinski in a season. This is a problem. There's so much meat that is being left on the bone whenever it comes to him that you got to wonder, what do you do here? Do you push him harder? They aren't sending him to AAA, but you got to wonder, after the month he's had, would that have been an option? Should it have been an option? I mean, it didn't happen. It won't happen, but should it have been at least seriously considered or implemented?
Alex, here's what's crazy to me. If I would have told you this deep into the season, okay, like when we were doing our preseason predictions, if I would have predicted that Jack Sawinski would have been on pace for 25 to 28 home runs, 65, 70 RBIs, he'd be above average slugging percentage, we would all take that. I mean, like, that's a solid year. But everything that you're saying about Jack Sawinski is 100% true. And that's the thing that drives me crazy. I think everybody crazy about him, that there's so much more meat on the bone with him.
You know what? It's you here. It just clicked on me right now. This Jack Sawinski is the 2023 Pirates. That if you would have come into the year and said Jack Sawinski is going to hit 25 homers and he's going to have the above average slugging and a good OBP and play, you'd be like, yeah, I'll take that. But then you remember where he was at the end of April. Like, he's been played at a 100 loss pace since the start of May, pretty much.
Yeah,
like it's like,
just been a bizarre baseball season, man.
Have one really good month, and that's look. I think he could be a part of this organization for a long time going forward. I think he could.
I do too. Absolutely.
Order. But you gotta just see at some point some aggressiveness. This isn't going to stand, man. I can't do the full Big Lebowski quote, but like it's
when he is aggressive, he is in my opinion, one of the better bats in the lineup. But he is so inconsistent in how in his it's not even inconsistent in his productivity. It's inconsistent in his approach at the plate.
Yeah.
If he could just find a consistent approach, I think that that would round off his game a lot better than it is right now. You know, it's I think it's difficult to plan a daily lineup for, you know, if you're going to have him play every day, you know, if he's going to play 140, 150 games a season, it's really hard to plan a lineup around a guy that one month is going to hit 10 home runs and then one month is going to strike out 1,000 times and look at 500, like go down looking at all as many times as he has. I don't have the numbers in front of me for that, but it's got to be a very difficult situation for Derek Shelton, and he'll never come out and say that publicly. I think maybe come close to it, but I don't know how you do that as a manager of a baseball team. Plan around a guy that like one month he's an all-star, the next month we're talking about putting him in AAA.
I'm gonna steal a stat here. I don't have the exact numbers here. This is from 2 weeks ago, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
North Shore Notch tweeted it out, saying that like Jack Suwinski has had 4 multi-homer games. If you take those away, his season stats are well below league average, and they are less than what he did last year. Now, I say that fully recognizing that we just took away his 4 best games. Of course, his numbers are going to tank whenever you do that. But if you want to look at it more practically, 29, if there are 30 days in a month, 29 days of them, Jack Sawinski's been a below average hitter. And he's been playing, center field, which he's done admirably at, but he's not a natural center fielder. So 29 out of 30 days, you can make the argument this guy is not a middle of the order bat. He might not even be a starter for a lot of teams. And granted, that other day is a great, great day, but it's
you need more than a day.
Yeah, I was looking at. I've written a couple mound visits on him. I've really, done some Jack Suwinski look like, okay, he needs to face the lefties. He needs to do this. There's just like so many areas where it's like, can he take that next step? And we haven't seen it this year. And yeah, development isn't always linear. God knows we've heard that a lot in the past. But you got to take that step. And whenever it's so self-inflicted by not being aggressive enough, I think that is what really stands out the most of, not to say overly, it's one thing to overly swing and maybe be too aggressive and it's like he's trying to do too much, but it's almost like that's a little easier to accept on a resume. Why'd you get fired? Well, I shot for the stars. I shot for the moon, and I landed in the stars. And boy, oh boy, was it a bad star! Like, all right, well, you shot for the moon.
One of the things, it's funny. Ryan Lytle kind of stole the thought right out of my brain. How much of this do you pin on Andy Haynes with Jack Suwinski, and how much of this is Jack in his own head?
I think this is a lot. Jack needing to mature as a hitter, and he is a smart man. He knows where his danger zones are. He knows he's good at identifying those pitches, but there comes a point where you can't just wait for a pitcher to make a mistake, and you got to force the issue. So I don't know. I have been on the record for a lot of stuff saying that a lot of things that Haynes and Marine get blamed for aren't necessarily all their fault, or it is well overblown their impact on some stuff here. The passivity of Jack Sawinski, I think, falls under the we're putting a little too much on Andy Haynes here.
I think we've ran this segment, but I do at some point in time, even if it's over a couple of beverages at a local restaurant, would like to go further into that conversation with you about Haynes and Marine. Because I don't think you and I agree on that topic.
I know a lot of people don't agree with me on that.
um, let's take one more. Let's take one more quick break before we get into an Oscar Marie and Andy Haynes argument. We'll save that for another day. I do have a pitching question for you though, specifically about one pitcher. So I want to get your thoughts on somebody that has been one of my favorite baseball players over the last decade. All right, Alex, we had a retirement this week. Steven Strasberg announcing his retirement makes me feel old. I remember going to Altoona with my friend Mike Larco to see him debut with the Harrisburg Senators against the Altoona Curve. I would assume what we're talking 15 years ish ago now. My brain. We're recording at
he made his
1:15
debut in
a.m.
2010.
Yeah, so almost 15 years, 13 years ago. But I remember being at Altoona. I remember the hype about him coming out of San Diego State. Everything about Steven Strasberg, for me, as somebody who grew up pitching, again, not good or anything, but grew up pitching. Barry Zito was my favorite baseball player growing up. I loved everything about pitching. So Steven Strasberg being this phenom and the hype that was around him really just like sucked me in. And and then getting to see him live, man, I was hooked. My question for you though, had as good of a career as Steven Strasberg had, World Series MVP, World Series champ, great years with the Nationals. Did Steven Strasberg live up to the hype around him coming into the majors when he was
MVP.
drafted?
World Series MVP is got to be my answer to that. Like I look, he had no chance of living up to the hype after the first Tommy John. Let's be real here.
Mm-hmm.
Like
this guy,
this guy was built as he could have been one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history, and then immediately was put at like 90%. So it's no. I guess if you want to be in the most yes, no way, no, he did not live up to the hype, but he was a World Series MVP. He was an All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
He was an ERA leader, a strikeout leader. He a leader of that clubhouse. Absolutely a great pick. Absolutely a career well done. He deserves all the accolades. It's hard to. He could put his head on the
Hall of
pillow.
Famer. Is he a Hall of Famer?
No.
And that, I guess,
not
for
even
me
really
is
close.
where, yeah, and that's my point is, and whether it was fair or unfair, the hype had him being the next guy. Like he was the next, and maybe for a small period of time he was or was close to that. But again, you can point to injuries, you can point to a lot of things. How the Nationals were when he first started. It was, as much as I liked him and as much as I was excited to see him, there was a lot to be desired from, I think, what we had expected from him. So I don't think it's hard because I don't think he had a bad career. I'm with you as far as his career goes. If you
He had a great career.
Yeah, he had a fantastic career, but he didn't live up to the hype. I think both can be true.
And I don't think it matters that he didn't live up to the hype because, again, World Series MVP.
Yeah,
every argument after that is invalid. Like we can, I'm going to cross sports here a little bit. Eli Manning. Did he live up to the hype of being the Manning brother and everything? No, he goobered most of his way. He was a 500 quarterback, but he also won 2 Super Bowls. So it's like, who cares? Who cares if he lived up to the hype? He set out what he went out to do. And I think if you do lead your team to a championship, it's not the only way to evaluate a player, but if you do legitimately lead your team to a championship the way that Steven Strasberg did, you are exempt from a lot of these conversations. And like I said, it's pretty darn good results too, as Ryan points out as well.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I think both can be true. I think you can have a very good career, an above average career, a career to be proud of, for sure. I mean, just to make it to the major leagues and
Yeah.
be a rotation guy, you should be proud of that. This is not me knocking Steven Strasberg in any way. I think I'm looking at it more from the hype around him was just unfair. I mean that was I've
I,
only seen two athletes live up to that kind of hype, and it was Sid and Mario. Um, that had that kind of hype coming in, and not only did they live up to it, but they may have surpassed that hype. Uh, I don't think that it's fair, but it is. You know that's what we had. He also was one of the first superstars coming out of college in the social media era. So I think there was just a lot of this, like, there was no mystique about him. It was like, oh wow, we could see it. It's on the internet every day. We could see what he does. It's amazing. He's hitting 100-mile-an-hour every start. It was a little different for him too. I think we didn't really know as a society, I think, or as sports fans, didn't really know how to react to what we were seeing with him either, because it was a different, it was a new era basically.
yeah. Great pitcher, great career,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely.
and he got a bag on the
And
way out the door.
I was gonna say, great severance package,
Yeah.
man.
Boris probably knows what he's doing. So
A little bit, at least for his clients, he does.
yeah.
It's been fun. You got anything else, man?
That's all I got this week, man.
Well, it is late. I think we both need to go get some sleep. I have to be, speaking of Altoona, seeing phenom pitchers. I got to go to Altoona tomorrow to see Paul Skeens.
You have fun.
We'll see everyone next week. Take care.